Hello, in this video I'm going to be restoring a Nintendo Game Boy store display kiosk. This is something I've always wanted to own, but even if I had the few thousands of pounds to buy one, they never come up for sale. This one, however, did, and I only paid £400 for it, but I think you can probably see why. It's in absolutely terrible condition. It's also missing the light up art piece that goes in here. Oh, and the Game Boy. But to be honest, I'm just glad any of it's still here, because this is where it was found. In that condition. It was taken home and temporarily pieced together, but somehow, in the process, the door was locked shut. But that's okay, because I happen to own the world's flimsiest lockpicking kit, and I have never used it before. I have absolutely no confidence in my ability to pick a lock whatsoever. Well, I'm in. At this point, I had absolutely no idea what I was in for. How on earth was I ever going to get this thing back to its former glory? There's stuff just lying around everywhere inside, and I've got no idea what works, what's original, what's been replaced, and what's missing. What you can see is where Shawn has added some brackets to hold it all together. Not a bad idea, but a tad ugly. Fortunately, this big information sheet was still intact, and it actually had some rather helpful advice on it. The Game Boy which is missing happens to be extremely rare. It's nearly identical to a standard one, however it has a sticker on it. Luckily, I found one on eBay years ago. No further introduction needed, let's get on with this. With the back door removed, it's now time to undo all of the brackets that were fitted. I have to be extremely careful as everything is so badly damaged and brittle. Unfortunately, duct tape and superglue were also used to hold this thing together, which is a bit of a shame because it's created more work. But Shawn had only planned to just give this to his son to use as a bedside lamp or something, so he certainly wasn't to know. With the whole thing now in two halves, I'm going to remove every single other screw in sight. We need to get this right down to the bare bones and see what's left of the wood this thing is made of. With everything now apart, it's time to assess the situation. And it's not good. There's chunks of wood missing everywhere. And unfortunately, Nintendo have opted to use the worst of all woods. Dust. Glued together with hope. And the hope has been lost somewhere in the last 3 decades. Perhaps somewhere in the abandoned warehouse. The side panels have a plastic fascia on them which is glued in some way onto the actual wood. These would have been added right at the very end. So unfortunately the heads of the screws that were holding this thing together are hidden underneath the plastic. So I came up with an extremely risky method of removing the screws, using something called a hole saw bit. The idea is that this can cut around the screw, and then I can lift the screw out. But to do this to any degree of precision, I had to buy a pillar drill. I've not used one of these since school about 15 years ago. I screwed a piece of MDF to my garden bench, and off we go. Oh my god. To stop it from drilling through the plastic on the other side, I used this stopper on the pillar drill. I only need to go so far down before I should just be able to pick apart the rest of the wood with a screwdriver. Yes! This was a great result. I now just need to do it another 7 times. I also drilled out all of the holes where things had been screwed in already. You can't reuse screw threads in particle board. That's not a rule you need to live your life knowing, it's just common sense, given that it's called particle board. So now, to fill all the holes. For this, I'm going to be using some glue and some wooden dowels. I also bought this cool Japanese saw, which is for cutting things flush. While the glue is still wet, I gave everything a sand so that the sawdust could fill any of the gaps. I then moved on to the other side. I don't know how I'm going to sort this corner out yet, but I might as well just cut out all of the damaged parts back to some solid wood. I was scratching my head on what to do to fix all of the damaged wood where the screws had blown through on some heavy impact. To solve this problem, I needed help. This is Dom. He's a professional furniture restorer and an all-round great guy. I visited a wood reclamation yard and managed to find a piece of wood identical to the ones used in this kiosk. Dom sharpened his pencil and got to work. The plan was to make new pieces to fit in place of the broken bits. To do this, we would have to cut out the damaged parts. Dom used a tool called a router, which has a spinning cutting piece on the end of it. This allows us to cut through the damaged part of the wood and remove all of the material. It takes a lot of precision to get this right. One wrong move and we've damaged more of this precious old kiosk. To straighten all the edges, a chisel and a knife was used. Dom's work was an absolute masterclass. It was then over to me to sand the pieces flush and glue them in. Now that I am capable of. We then went to Dom's workshop because we needed more tools. The corner piece I'd cut out earlier needed to be straightened up and have a new piece made for it. Once the pieces I'd glued in had dried, Dom cut the ends off to get it nice and flush. We then applied some wood filler and sanded everything smooth. To finish off, a couple of coats of a water-based primer were painted on. And that's as far as we're going to get with that piece for now. Let's finish off these other parts.
So it goes into the actual holes.
There was another corner smashed in. This time we just used some filler to patch it up and then sanded it all smooth. And now for the worst piece of all, the base. This took a serious beating. Not only were huge chunks missing, but the wood was also splitting in places. I gave this to Dom to sort out with a few cups of tea in his own time. You can't rush perfection. And perfection it was. With all of the panels now restored, I gave everything a light sand and a thin coat of varnish. This is one of the screws that was originally used to put this all together. We will not be using these screws. Instead, I found these brackets online which give it far more stability and allow us to reassemble and disassemble the kiosk without worrying about the screws chewing up the particle board. The brackets do need some screws to secure them to the wood, which would probably be fine, but to improve this, I'll be using some threaded inserts. This then means we have an extremely secure bracket which can also be easily adjusted. The ratcheting screwdriver I've been using came from the LTT store. This has all of the bits you could possibly need stored inside the handle. This is a design feature I absolutely love. I also love the gnarled grip on the end piece of the screwdriver. This allows you to quickly screw things in before doing a final tighten with the top. My plan is to screw everything into place using the included bracket screws just to make sure it's all aligned, and then I'll drill those holes out more and fit the threaded inserts. for the finer screwing, I used the LTT Precision Bit Screwdriver Kit. This has every single bit you could possibly need. The handle of the Precision Kit has a bearing that spins forever. You can also store extra bits inside of it. I'll leave a link to the LTT website in the description. Go and check them out, it will help me out a bunch. And a big thank you to LTT for sponsoring this video. And with that, all of the wooden pieces were finished and the brackets have been fitted. Before I assemble it though, I'm going to fit some felt feet on the base. It's now time to assemble the enclosure fully, for the first time. Let's do this. Yeah, the top piece still needs painting. I wanted to fit all the brackets first so I didn't scratch the new paint. To paint it, I took the top piece here, to Samurai Martial Arts Center. They kicked me out and told me to go to Brewers round the corner, where a spectrometer was used to get the most accurate paint match possible. They then made me a custom tin of paint. And here it is. Let's paint. With the painting done, I could fit the top piece in place. It's a little bit darker than I would have hoped, but in most angles it looks absolutely fine. I'm just happy that most of the original paint is still intact. Now that's all together, I can fit my head inside and look out of the hole where a beautiful piece of artwork should be going. Sadly, mine was missing, but not for long. I started with a photo I took on my phone of the stars. I edited the picture to make the blacks more black and the stars more white. Big thank you to Logan who sent me images of his kiosk artwork for me to follow. I found these two graphics on the side on Google, which was handy. A bit of adjusting and they look spot on. The harder part was to now add the bigger stars. For this main one, I cut it out from the original and added it to mine. The rest of them I drew by hand. With a bit of fading and some glow added, I think they came out great. I couldn't find the graphic used of the Game Boy on Google, so I took a photo of my own Game Boy. If you want to win this Game Boy, follow my Instagram in the description and follow the instructions on my latest post. Once I cut around the Game Boy, I added it to my artwork. It's now time to copy the game of Tetris on the screen. I couldn't find the exact image used, so I recreated it Tetramino for Tetramino. I added the LED light and copied the colors, shading and lighting from the original. Now to move on to the Tetris cart. I don't actually own an American copy of the game, so I found the label on Google and just used that. And there we go, it's done. The only problem is it's digital. That's where SAS Graphics comes in. They turn your digital dreams into a physical reality. If that's not their slogan, it should be. It's time to fit it. The art sits on this shelf piece, and then the bracket is screwed into the sides of the kiosk. Luckily, there's now a solid wooden dowel in place of all of the old screw holes. So let's disassemble the kiosk again, which we can do easily thanks to our lovely new brackets, and then drill pilot holes in all of the dowels. As for this electrical box, it wasn't going to fit in its original place because of the bracket, so I marked new holes and added more threaded inserts to secure it properly. I'm not cutting corners now. It's time to reattach the door. All of the hinges were beaten up and that'll stop it from closing properly. So I straightened them all out with a vise and screwed the door back on. It closes perfectly. The kiosk didn't come with a key for the lock, but I've been told it's a standard key that I've now ordered. For now, I'll just temporarily fit this new lock. I look forward to fitting the original lock again. I cable tied the wires back in and glued this doorstop back on. Can you believe we're nearly done? The board which deals with the power for the Game Boy was unplugged, so before plugging it back in the wrong way, I worked out which way it was supposed to go with a multimeter. I could then safely plug it back in. However, upon turning it on, the Game Boy still wasn't powered. A bit of investigating later, and I found this wire was actually disconnected. I cut open the heat shrink and tested the board with my multimeter. Clearly power is getting this far, so let's solder the wire back in and see if that solves it. Big thanks to my friends Vince and Shawn for helping me out here. Before I can sit this board back down, I need to make a cover. My friend Gray sent me this image which shows the plastic cover that's missing. I bought some sheets of plastic, punched some holes into it, and finally fitted all of the electronics. The Game Boy sits on a bracket which then screws into the kiosk. Considering this Game Boy was left in stores for customers to play on, it didn't seem very secure just screwing wing nuts onto plastic. Upon checking the information sheet, it appears there's a big metal plate that's missing. There's also a custom battery cover which screws the Game Boy into the bracket. This was also missing. So I drove to a small town called Tewkesbury in search of answers. Ben, I need a favour.
Right?
This is Retro Sect. It's one of the best gaming shops in the country, run by my friend Ben. Ben recently picked up an even rarer Game Boy kiosk than mine. I'm hoping it's going to have the same metal brackets that mine's missing, and then I can figure out how to get my own. And there it is. It's beautiful. And there's the other one. Ben was more than happy to lend these to me. It's not like they're probably the only ones in the country, and if I lose them, we're both screwed. It was then time to head to London. Khal, I need your help.
Hello there.
This is Khal. He's going to help me make copies of these. And who better to ask than the man who makes the world's most accurate lightsaber replicas. I recently made a video on Khal and his company, Sabers. Make sure to give that a watch. With both of the parts now replicated digitally, it was now time to bring them into the real world and see just how identical they were. Khal used one of Sabers' many 3D printers to print them out in plastic. They looked absolutely perfect. But plastic's no good for a secure bracket that should be made of steel. That's where my friends in China come in. This is the PCBWay headquarters. They've kindly sponsored this video. As the name suggests, PCBWay make every possible PCB you could ever need for your DIY projects. But they also offer sheet metal fabrication, among many other things. Before long, they sent me these. I just need to tap the threads into this hole, and then we can finally fit the Game Boy into the kiosk.